Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Rangers review special. We're not talking about a rumoured target this time. We're talking about a player that has been seen with the scarf above his head. He has signed last night. He was unveiled. Emmanuel Fernandez. He is a Rangers player signing from Peterborough. And it brings me great joy to say we're joined once again by Ashley from the brilliant Up the Poshcast podcast, which covers Peterborough United in great detail. How's it going, Ashley?
All good, thank you, Derek. Still in a state of shock after last night. This was not something, even though it was a rumour, it was never something that I considered being something legit that would go over the line. How are you?
Yeah. I'm good, thank you. I'm keen to get your thoughts on this lad because, like you, when it initially surfaced, many were like, really? And certainly given the reaction to some of the Posh fans to his departure, a few question marks over his suitability, you could say, to Rangers. But we'll dive into that and find out just exactly what Rangers have paid a substantial amount of money for, of course, as well. When we last had you on, we discussed Kwame Poku. He decided to stay closer to home and sign for QPR. But Rangers have went back to you guys and have taken the big centre half, Emmanuel Fernandez. So, I mean, he's been on the books at the Posh for a number of years now, Ashley, hasn't he? This season is the real season that he's started to play more prominently for you guys. What's the sort of backstory when you arrived to the point we're at now where he's at Ibrox?
So if I remember correctly, it was probably 4 years ago. It was Ramsgate that he joined us from. I think that we took him on a free because the level that he was playing at was just not anything substantial, or if there was a fee, it was minimal, like, let's say. And he's always been somebody that that he's massive. Like he is genuinely huge, and he's an athlete as well, and you can see that. He maybe doesn't behave that way on a football pitch. Sometimes you think that maybe he's in like cloud cuckoo land and that he's not actually playing football. Maybe he's like playing FIFA with himself or something. And I don't want to sit here and just like totally slag the bloke off, because a lot of these deals and a lot of what Posh do is on potential, right? And like I say, he spent 3 years basically playing for our under 21/under 23s. And he didn't go out on loan all that often because the club ultimately felt that he was better being trained by our coaches rather than going to the National League or potentially or League Two, because they could see an asset in him and they could see a development plan in him. He came in last season. He was, and we discussed on our Monday release, he was our best player in August and September of last season. And he really looked like he was going to be this fantastic centre-back that we'd been missing over the last 2 years that could just win everything in the air. He made us a threat from corners because it's basically like the ball's a magnet to his head when it comes in. You can just see him winning headers at corners. The bizarre thing is that his heading is actually quite poor in a defensive manner, in that often the ball's coming dead straight at him and you'd think, yeah, just put your head on it and send it right back where it's come from. And often it's going sideways. It's not going where it needs to. I don't know whether that's a case of he's been told, well, you're going to win the header, Manny, so let's try and knock it down to the left back, knock it down to the right back, or not. But it's very clear to see that there's potential. I think that the investment that Rangers have made, whether that's the 3.5 million that we discussed last night, or potentially, let's say, 1.5 million, as little as that, that's a lot of money for potential to have paid. Yeah. And look, it may come off in 2-3 years' time and he may become a world beater, but he's got to get the on switch to stay on. It's like it defaults to switching off. And Charlie, one of the other guys on the podcast, made a reference to him being Virgil van Dijk, but maybe not Virgil van Dijk. And I can see that. It's hopefully a case that he can make that step up to the Scottish Premiership and even Champions League football, right? Potentially and become a great defender for Rangers.
Thought to be around about 3 million quid all in, which is a substantial amount of money for no disrespect to Peterborough, but for a League One defender, and a defender that is just came to prominence in the last season in a team, and I'm sure you'll see it yourself, Ashley, that underachieved last year. They shouldn't have been down at the bottom end of that division where they were. Of course, the highlight being that EFL trophy win over Birmingham. He did pretty well, of course, in that FA Cup match against Everton as well, where I wonder if he caught the eye of Kevin Thelwell and Dan Sunday. So he's shown that he has ability for Rangers to splash this cash on him. But it came as a surprise, I guess, for you guys. It was heavily linked to a move to Norwich, wasn't he, back in January, which fell through. Has there been any other clubs thinking about?
It doesn't seem like it has. And the Norwich thing was kind of like a deadline day deal or the days before, and he rejected them, and it was kind of like, oh my goodness, like I don't think he then played until probably we went to Reading away, I think it was. And then he was terrible that day. He was out of the team. So we essentially brought in Sam Hughes, and I won't go too much into the back detail. We brought in Sam Hughes to give us some experience at the back because Manny and Oscar Wallen, the centre-back pairing, it just wasn't working. Brought in, and Manny was the one that was sacrificed, and he came out of the team for that period as well. And Oscar Wallen was playing with a hernia, which he's had to have an operation on this summer. So that sort of tells you a little bit about what Manny was in that February-March period. He then steps up at Wembley in our Virtue Trophy final against Birmingham, and we've kept a clean sheet against the team that's broken every record that there was in League One. Now, Birmingham should have never been in the division, but they were, so they could only beat what was in front of them, right? And it just goes back to like what I said, is that if he can stay switched on for 90 minutes, and you could see that slowly getting there, is that he obviously finds football, or found under 21s football, very easy because of his size and his build, that he could just ultimately catch up with himself, even if he was a second too slow. But at League One, you don't get a second, you get half a second. And in the Scottish Prem, you get 0.2 of a second, right? And then in the Premier League, you ultimately get no time in the Premier League, do you? So it's whether he can make that switch from, I've got half a second and I can recover and make a lunging tackle to stop a shot or to get a tackle in. Can he make that and switch that on faster? And it's ultimately going to be about the engagement from the coaching, I think. And is he going to be fully engaged? Which I hope that he is, and I hope that he respects the move and gives it the respect that it deserves, because it's a massive move for him, and it's massive for Peterborough United to say now that we've got players going to Germany, we've got players going to one of the top two teams in Scotland. It's huge for the football club ourselves. So hopefully we can continue relationships like this going forwards.
Yeah, they're always in a state of rebuilding, you guys, aren't they? I mean, always, like you say, bringing players in, relatively unknown, obscure guys, developing them and selling them for profit. They've done it for so long now, renowned for it. It must be frustrating as fans, though, right enough, Ashley, to see these players heading out the door and rebuilding every year.
It's a really difficult one because, like you say, it does constantly feel like we're rebuilding. But whether Manny wanted to be at Posh next season or not, I don't know. Or whether this is we've had a bid accepted for Manny, so off you go now. Yeah. I wouldn't want to say, or whether Manny's forced to do. I wouldn't want to put any of those words sort of into anybody's mouth, because that wouldn't be fair. But it's very clear that the club is moving on from last season and has learned from the mistakes, that if the money is right, ultimately we shouldn't be holding on to these players, because they get to the point where they're got a year left on their contract, and then they're ultimately worth nothing to us. In the likes of Poku, yes, him going to QPR meant that we got some money, but Cipriani left on a free, Ricky J. Jones left on a free, and there's other players like you'd have seen yesterday as well. We sold Malik Mothersill to Stockport. The players that we've brought in, however, now we're signing them on 4-year deals. We're signing them on 5-year deals. So it's clear that there's been a shift in, let's not do the 3 years, let's do 4 or 5 years. And yes, we may still sell them, but it will be after 3 or 4 years rather than 1 or 2 years potentially. So it's frustrating, but I think that right now is the reset of Peterborough United, because it's been a difficult couple of years after we lost 2 playoff finals or 2 playoff semi-finals back to back, and then ultimately last season was just not very good in the league.
Yeah. On Manny then, what's his weaknesses? What does he have to work on? Is it concentration? Is that one of the big factors, do you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing is that he is actually quite a good leader. And I don't know whether he sort of took that responsibility on. Like we discussed it before we started, didn't we? Is that if Manny Fernandez was 19, 20 and Rangers were
Mm.
signing him, I'd say fantastic prospect. But this is a guy that in sort of 4 months' time is 24. And
Yeah.
yes, he was one of the older ones in the team last year. So he probably did feel that element of responsibility to be a leader. But I think that took away from his game because he was focusing on, let's say, the defender either side of him and the goalkeeper that he had in him, is that he was more worried about them than what he was doing himself, which may have contributed to his lack of concentration because he wasn't focusing on himself. Obviously, at Rangers, he's not going to be the leader, is he? There's going to be millions of pounds worth of talent around him and years of experience on him. Obviously, I think the Connor Cody link is relatively strong as well. So, like a pairing like that, the experience of Connor Cody and the rawness of Manny Fernandez, that excites me as somebody that watches Rangers part time. And his strengths are that he's happy to be on the ball. He just, and it's like, I don't want to sound like a broken record. It just all seems like it goes back to the same thing of, can he stay switched on? Because he has all of these assets that are available to him to be a fantastic footballer. He just needs to make sure that he stays switched on. And ultimately, I think that's his biggest weakness. His strengths are all of the things that Russell Martin would look for in a defender, in that he can pass, he's comfortable on the ball, he can carry it forwards. If you look back to our away game at Exeter, which was August last year, he basically picks the ball up midway between the 18-yard box and the halfway line, carries it forwards, and then shoots from 20 yards and scores. Now, that's a progressive run of, 50 yards, probably, you would say. And he's put the ball in the back of the net. Now, questions over the goalkeeping in that video, but he's still done it. And he's happy to progress the team forwards and carry it forwards because he knows that he can get his arms out and shield people away because he's a big, strong lad. I do think that, like I said earlier, he needs to work on his heading. And focus on making sure that is a good, strong connection because he's going to win the header. Like, there's no doubt about that. It's just, is he going to win the header and help the team press forwards or keep the ball, or is he just going to put it out for a throw-in, which was something that we saw quite a lot last year?
Yeah, of course, we are live on the Rangers Review Extra channel. A few comments coming in. John Montague, just touching on what you said, Ashley says, could playing with Cody or Giga, who they've been linked with, that looks to be edging closer, the Wolves defender, bring him on and add to his development. Yeah, it just sort of ties in with what you said. I don't think he'll be the main man in the back line. He may not very well be the first pick either to begin with if Rangers are close to bringing these two chaps in. But it certainly will. I think for certain games, there was a criticism of Rangers last season, Ashley, that they weren't physical enough at the back. They were losing cheap goals, and the opposition strikers were just bullying the Rangers centre halves at times. Do you think that Fernandez could be a guy to deal with that sort of aerial physical threat that Scottish teams pose?
Absolutely. If the ball's in the air, Manny Fernandez is the man that is gonna help you with that. What he does struggle with sometimes is just being that half second too late. Is that he got sent off against Charlton because he lunged into a tackle and basically looked like it was nearly going to break the guy's leg. He punched the ball at Wickham away. So he's got 2 red cards in his Posh career last season alone. And I think that those 2 signings, and the other thing is, let's say that he's going to be a bench player for Rangers for 25 games this season, and then he will then get some starts through injuries, rest, and all of that sort of thing. Is that what Manny Fernandez actually brings as well? Is that he is comfortable in midfield, performing a role where you just want him to get the ball, get it down, and then pass it off. And equally, there were times last season where we played him up front. If you look back to the semi-final in the Virtue Trophy against Wrexham, when we were chasing the game, we chucked him up front because he wins headers, and that you can see there's a clip, and I don't know whether it's on the highlights or whether that was one of the extended highlights, where he picks the ball up in the centre circle and Fergie is literally screaming at him like, "What are you doing? Get up the pitch because we need you to win the header." And ultimately, that was something that he wasn't involved in one of the goals, but he was there, and he causes a threat. Like, I think that's the big thing, is that he is such an attacking threat, in that if you can put the ball in his area, he's going to win headers. And clips against, like, he scored against Birmingham in September. I can't think back to too many of the goals, but the Birmingham one's the one that I remember fondly, because the ball was just whipped in and he just wins the header, and there was nobody near him because he's made the perfect run. So I think that he needs to learn, but what better place to learn and make that step up? And equally, it may just be that he felt too comfortable at League One, and that he didn't feel like he was challenged, which made him worse. And the step up to the Scottish Premiership will make him better, because he knows what he needs to improve in.
Yeah, I do love it when a big centre-half goes and plays up front. I'm a big fan of that. That's the sort of last chance saloon sort of stuff from managers, isn't it, when you're trying to chase a game? James, with an interesting point, says, is he a quick learner? That's the question. We'll soon find out. You touched on there, he's 24 soon, so he's not a baby by all accounts, and he'll have expectations, I'd imagine, of playing games and moving on in his career. I know Russell Martin said when he was unveiled yesterday that he'll look to help him develop and provide him with the opportunities to take his game to the next level. So I'd imagine there will be game time for him. Do you think in terms of potential, you touched on it at the top of the show, Ashley, do you think his game can be taken to another level? I know, as I mentioned earlier, the Peter fans aren't crying their eyes out at his departure. Would it be a surprise to see him really excel at Rangers, do you reckon?
I don't think it would be, because he's clearly somebody that, in the 3 years that he spent in our academy, he's developed a long way from playing at like lower level non-league and probably semi-pro football, let's say. And to have even made that climb in sort of 3 years up to League One level shows significant progress, and taking on board the things that he's learning, is that actually, if he's being coached by somebody that was super experienced, and that was something that we didn't really get to see a massive amount of, is that he didn't pair up with Sam Hughes, who was our experienced head, that much in games, because of the opposite pairing with Oscar Wallin. Is that I'm sure that if he's got somebody alongside him that can just guide him and show him the right way to be a centre back, and learn the right things, and sort of be a student of the game, like take himself back to when he was 18 years old, and just be willing to learn and accept that actually not every piece of feedback is a criticism. It is just that the people around him do genuinely want him to improve. So it would be unfair for me to say, is he a quick learner? Because ultimately we shipped like 80 goals last year, and I would say no to that, because it took us until January to keep a clean sheet. And that was then when we brought in Sam Hughes and kept a clean sheet. So the answer is I don't know if he's a quick learner, but it all goes back to if he understands that this is the right move for him and his family and all of those people that he's got around him, then he has to make it work, because he doesn't want to end up in the Scottish third division in 2 years' time, because he's thrown away this massive opportunity.
Yeah, it's a great chance for him. And playing in that Russell Martin team as well, it's somewhat different to most coaches, certainly to Darren Ferguson, you could say. Ashley, do you think that he could, is he good with the ball at his feet, is what I'm trying to say? Is he comfortable with the ball? And you mentioned there that goal at Exeter, he seems to have no qualms about moving forward with the ball, and fancies a crack on goal. So is that one of his attributes, do you reckon?
I would say that it is, yes, and he's happy to receive the ball under the pressure. I think that it would all come down to the system and the availability of the people around him. In the way that we sort of play at Posh is that it very much is, can we bring the team forwards, or we're moving backwards towards our 18-yard box to bring the team that we're playing this way, and then leave the space in behind. Is that if it's going to be a more progressive passing lines, is that may cause some challenges initially off the bat, but I also think that that's probably going to be the case for the majority of the Rangers team in this new style, in this new setup. I'm sure that we discussed it when we discussed Kame Boku, is that it's probably going to hurt for 4 months, right? Whilst everybody learns the patterns of play and the styles that Russell Martin wants to play. And actually, this is probably the perfect time for Emmanuel Fernandez to make a move like that, because he is comfortable with the ball at his feet. He's had that experience with Darren Ferguson and the way that Posh play football. Yes, it's a change, but it's not a massive change from a team that plays hoofball, right? And there must be a reason that Russell Martin's looked at it and gone, right, we need somebody big, we need somebody strong, but we also want somebody that is good with the ball at their feet. So I think that he will be a good fit for the system. It will just come down to being given the chance to make mistakes. Ultimately, I think it probably comes down to.
When we had you on last, when we were off air, you did mention that you've got a soft spot for Rangers as well. Ashley, how do you see it going then? I mean, they were very active yesterday. Joe Rothwell arrived. Max Aarons has arrived as well. As I touched on earlier, looks like Cody and Jaga could be on their way. And Theo Asgard is one that looks to be close as well. How do you see it going next season?
Do you know what, for Rangers, I think that it actually comes down to not losing the scrappy games. And I think that those results, the Old Firm games, they are heated, they are passionate. But the Old Firm games are not going to be the reason that Rangers don't win the title next season. It'll be the St Mirrens, the Motherwells, the St Johnstones, those types of teams where they're dropping points. And it's not that they're even losing the games. Like, there was a game on TV, I'm sure it was Ross County, where they were scoring like 3 or 4 goals. And I was just looking at it thinking, like, just switch on type thing, like wake up. Like, and that's probably what you're going to feel with Emmanuel Fernandez as well, is that if Rangers can avoid dropping the points, they've shown that they can do it in the big games against Celtic when it really matters to the fans, right? But they need to show that they can do it in the games where they're up against it. They're playing teams that have got low blocks, 5 at the back. They've got 4 sat in front of them, and they're even the strikers like basically on the edge of the 18-yard box. So for me, I'm watching Rangers part-time. That's the important thing, is to stop dropping points against the weaker teams in the league. And that will naturally carry the points tally up towards what you need to win the league.
Yeah. And what do you make of Russell Martin as well, Ashley? Former Posh man, of course.
He was a great captain at Posh and won Posh promotion. He wasn't here for a massively long time, but he's then gone on to have a great footballing career. And his managerial career he's been an in-demand manager pretty much from the minute that he took up a role at MK Dons, I think it was, that he started at. And he's always had success with the teams that he's got. And he's managed to get it to work. Obviously, the Southampton thing, it was never going to work for Southampton in the Premier League, playing the way that they do, because that's just not the way that you can succeed in the Premier League. And their points tally ended up showing that. They got like 12 points, didn't they, by the end of the season? But I think that may become an issue for Russell Martin, is the stubbornness behind the system, in that Southampton fans, they were even applauding the team off when they were losing like 3-4-0, right? Because they were appreciating the style of play. I don't think he's going to be afforded that luxury at Ibrox if the team lose to, like I say, let's say a Motherwell or something. Not to disparage them or anything, but if you lose 3-0 to Motherwell, there's going to be riots outside the gates, isn't there? Type thing.
Yeah, it's a disaster. He'll know that as well. From his short spell as a player, but let's hope we can hit the ground running, that's for sure. James gets in touch. He says we're keeping an eye out for the Posh now, so cracking club are Peterborough United. Where do you start in the season, Ashley? What is it, a home game, or are you away somewhere?
We're away at Cardiff. That's probably one of the toughest challenges. So that is on TV. That's the 2nd of August, 12:30 kickoff. So I would love for everybody to come into our comments after we've reviewed that game. Hopefully we get a win. You know, there's no better way to start the season. Away games starting the season and going to get a win against a massive club like Cardiff. There's levels to League One, and they're definitely going to be one of those teams that are competing highly. So my expectations for Posh next season, I just don't want to be as bad as we were last year in the league. I'm not so bothered about it. It'd be great if we get to Wembley again and win the Virtue Trophy 3 times in a row, because that would just ultimately solidify Darren Ferguson as the ultimate club legend. But at the same time, we've just got to be better than we were. 18th finish in the league is not Peterborough United. So even if that's 12th or it's 14th or 15th, I don't want to be going into the last 3 or 4 games knowing that we need results to avoid relegation. Let's grow. Look, we've had a difficult season. We've lost lots of assets. Let's just reset and go again, and hopefully have some middle table of success, and then know that we can push forwards in the 26-27 season for top 6, let's say.
Yeah. I said it in I think when we done the Poku video, I covered Bolton, so I always enjoy it. My trips down to London Road. The food is always spot on. The lovely little fan zone you've got out there, and some of the cuisine trucks are bang on. I think I had a baked potato and chili, I'm sure, the last time, which was
the jacket potato stand is a favourite of mine as well. Yeah,
yeah.
You'll have to let me know when you do head down, because it'd be great to meet up.
Yeah, absolutely, Ashley. I'll make sure I do that. But it's been brilliant having you back on again. Thank you for coming on. Finally talked about a guy that's left Peterborough to join Rangers. So there you go, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed that bit of insight into Emmanuel Fernandez. If people want to find out more about the great work you guys do, Ashley, how can they find you?
So YouTube's probably our best place. I would love it. We're on a road to try and get ourselves to 1,000 subscribers. I think we're at 725 now. I'd love it if everybody could go and subscribe to our channel. We don't do as much of the daily stuff. We focus on weekly, but we did do a podcast last night after the Emmanuel Fernandez news broke, because we had sort of 4 or 5 discussion topics. So there is a 10-minute segment on Emmanuel Fernandez in there, where I would probably take that with a little bit of a pinch of salt now, because we were all laughing our heads off at the fact that we've managed to rip Rangers off for 3.5 million. Maybe that's not quite true, but we would love to get our subscribers up to 1,000, and that's the next big milestone for us. We're on Spotify, we're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're pretty much everywhere, but YouTube would be the place that I would like people to direct their attention to and catch up on our videos there.
Good stuff. James says he'll come and sub the now. Good stuff, James. Just before we go, James made a point here, Ashley. I don't know if I asked this. I may have missed this, but can he play left side? Is he left or predominantly right-sided?
So he is right-footed, but he was playing on the left at times last season, because between him and Oscar Wallin moved from the Swedish league, and it was very clear that he needed to be on the right-hand side. So Manny was playing on the left-hand side, whilst Oscar Wallin was moving across. But I would say that if somebody like Connor Cody's going to come in, I would feel more comfortable as a Rangers follower that Connor Cody takes that experience and takes that side. But ultimately, the way that football's played these days, it's not just a case of you need to use your left foot all the time. He's inside, he's outside. So I wouldn't have any issues with his passing with his left foot, but he's definitely a right-footed and right-sided player in the main, I would say.
Excellent. Good stuff. Right, Ashley, thank you for that. And thank you to you all for tuning in to this Rangers Review special. We'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.